He had dreams of a people that he could be their father, their patron, that he had this picture. And we broke his dreams. And we don't even know. We don't even care. But we can do something about that. How many more days will we breathe? A friend that I was supposed to see a week ago is dead. Another friend said, I may never see you again. This might be it. We are here today. We can be the people of his dreams. We don't know, any of us, how many more days we're going to breathe and walk this earth. We could be the ones who are living his dream one more day. We just kept Shabbat yesterday. He said that he envisioned his people for 6,000 years sitting down on the seventh day because they were pleased to fulfill the vow. And yet he's had at least 2,000 years of people who are disgusted at the thought of having to do so. How many people want to sit for a week at Sukkot? I think this has been incredible. Okay, now we'll get to the subject matter, which is the verse. How much time do we have left?
How much do you need?
We're only supposed to go an hour and a half, and I can go, pretty quick. How far are we into it?
7 minutes.
7 minutes to go? Okay.
Well,
A challenge.
We can stretch it.
Mutiny! We started a little late, so
We did.
wiggle room.
That's right. Do I get
more like 27
27
or
minutes.
37.
Okay, so here, some of these words we went over the other day in other verses. What you'll find is if you start looking at Scripture, there's not a huge vocabulary. Most of these things are prefixes and suffixes, and there's only 22 letters. If you know the 22 letters, you know the entire language. And it's like, okay, but these are foreign words. It's a foreign language. No, it is not. Hebrew is your indigenous language. The entire universe was built out of Hebrew. Your consciousness is keyed to Hebrew. Your body is composed of what happens when the Hebrew letters are put together. You are the Hebrew language. So you're not learning a foreign language. Change your thoughts. Change your expectation, your kufav. And everything will look different. You'll just rest and let the bubbling up of your intent, which is to say, I want to be his people. I want to do what he said. I want to perceive El Shaddai. And keep the vow. And the vows are the words that we swore as he spoke them. Not translated, not flipped around and spun around and upside down, nailed with cross, done away with, buried, tossed. What did he say?
His way.
Learn the 22 letters and you got the language. Very easy. Because the 22 letters make perfect sense. The first 10 letters, as I said the other day, here's half the alphabet. You want to buy something at the store? That's Aleph. You need a vehicle. There's Bet. An object to transport you with. Start the vehicle moving. There's Gimel. You got to decide, do I turn this way or that way? There's Dalet. Dan, make a decision. Hey! There's the directions. Vav. Put it, connect, make that determination. You get to the place you're headed. There's Zion. Stop. In front of you is the store. There's the Het. Walk into the store. You pick up your bag. There's Tet. You put your stuff in the basket. So Tet is the circle with the X in it. And then you pay for it. Yod. Here's the hand with a kind of a claw, like an excavator bucket. You pay for it, you grab it, it becomes yours. The Yod suffix means mine. There's the first 10 letters. Perfectly logical. How hard is that? This is for you. Oh, there's the letter Kaf. There's the 11th letter. Lamed. Teach and learn this. There's the 12th letter. Mem, that which is hidden, like nurturing it in a womb. Nun will jump out. There's number 50, the Jubilee, which is, whoo, new life. Whoa! Got it. And then Samech, he's the vine, you're the branches. Bear fruit. What fruit? Just like he said, the Ruach in you. And the fruit you bear, well, that's the ayin. Look, it's shaped like an eyeball with a seed in it. The way you look towards your neighbors, the measure you use is measured to you. Blessed are the merciful, they will receive mercy. Care for one another, and pay, rejoice, and speak his words. That's the next letter. And then what happens? Zadi, it sprouts, it sprouts. It's the scepter of righteousness that he promised. As Kuf, by doing all that, we will ascend. Like Yeshua ascended into the heavens, we will ascend into the lofty position as Resh, the princes of the earth. Princes, doing only what the Father said to do. Yeshua said, I only do what I see him doing, I only say what I hear him saying. And then the glory of El Shaddai is evident to the entire world. Shin, manifest on display. Which is the objective of him being our Elohim and us being his people. There, Tav. Just like he said. There's the alphabet. Didn't you know that? It's not so hard. So, as we discussed, Zadi is this sprout. So Zadi Aleph is the word out or go out. These are prefixes. Aleph Tav. The Aleph Tav is that entire story I just told you. It's the first and the last of all the 22 letters. And the summary of everything we've been talking about. See, it's not just Aleph is an ox, Bet is a house, Gimel is a camel, Dalet is a door, Hey is the, it's a window, it's to illuminate, Vav is a nail, Zion is a weapon. It's not just that. It's this whole picture that I've been talking about for the last hour. That's Aleph Tav. That mentality of the plan, the revealing, the crucifixion, the entombing, Israel being stuck into a tomb amongst the nations and dominated as the Huns. They would bury whole villages alive and party with a feast on top of it, eating the food that they just raided. Horrible scene. But that's what's been going on to Israel for the last 3,000 years, since the days of Solomon and David. Yahweh gave the kingdom to our enemies, and they've been partying on top as we've been buried alive. And the way to sprout out is to hear his mitzvot and do them. And Yahweh says, then your enemies that pursued you, Deuteronomy 29:30, the enemy that pursued you, I will turn my wrath on them and restore you to the privileged position. This isn't the eschatology taught in any Christian church that I've ever attended, or books that I've read, or movies I've watched. This narrative has never existed in my hearing. That's the Aleph Tav. The suffix can mean he or it, the Vav suffix. If it had been a hey, it would be she. It's a feminine suffix. But if you see a hey at the end, it doesn't always mean she. This is the verb, and this means to express, or on display. That's the word for bush. Hey, Samach Nun, hey. Zadi Ka is Zadi Dalet Kuf, hey. This is righteous, this is righteousness. So it's not girl and boy, male and female. It's the expression. It's to beautifully be putting on display, to manifest. Adam saw Hua, and it says he was deeply impressed. That's the feminine. To be deeply impressed by. Which is what, going back to what I said in Jeremiah 31, the woman shall seek out the man. He wants Israel to come find him. So for us searching in these letters, bubbling up, seeking with desire, going back, looking at the vow, going back, analyzing these words, that's what we're doing. Around and around, keeping the festivals. This is all a matter of seeking him And remember, there's another place he says, whoever seeks me with all his heart, I will allow myself to be found by him. So we have to read the conditions, and then the hope is he will indeed do as he said. He will allow that we find him. Where did he hide himself? It's a little kid's game. Quotes. The word hetzadi is arrow. It also means to partition. This board is partitioning this side of the room from that. This is a chatz, hetzadi. A bow and arrow, that's also chatz. An arrowhead is the word sagittal, which is where you get the word Sagittarius. Is the guy with the arrow. This is something with an arrow, something partitioning. If you are driving down the highway and the highway has a dotted line, that's also the word chatz. Do you see an arrow out in the street? I'm telling you that in the Hebrew, as you look in the dictionary, you see these different things and your mind goes different places than where it might have gone. That's what this is about. So you'll see also that the word hetzadi or hetvavzadi means outside for whatever reason. Because that's on the other side of the barrier from inside. You have to figure out the Hebrew mind. Vayomer says, I'm trying to go fast here. This is the word, remember we said for look or gaze? Which is what we're supposed to do, the Nun Samik. This is the word na, which sometimes in the text is translated now. It's pronounced N, this is the E sound, or the aleph is silent, so is kind of the aleph, so it's ne. So they say, well, it means now in English, but in the dictionary it means please. So you could say, well, it means now please. Hashemayim, mayim is the word for water. Sheen is the letter which means fire. But the word Shem means name. It also means place. And see, it has a hey here, and there's a hey here. So, as we said the other day, the fact that it starts with hey simply means the. But the reason it means the is because of what the first four letters were. So keep in mind always that there's this 22-letter full scope, the gamut, from Aleph to Tav. And each letter can be seen in correlation to the Aleph to Tav. That he had a plan, he put the plan into object form, the universe. Gimel set the plan in action, and Dalet gave it a direction, and then specified the options is hey. So if he's specifying the options with names and places, this is the word for the heavens, but the word is water. But then we go back to Genesis 1, and he said he separated the waters above from the waters below and put a rachia, a firmament between. So these are like the waters above that are given names and places. They're separated out and put here and there. We know them. The word is heaven, but we think of the stars and the galaxies. And Sefer, this is the word S-F-R. And the F is the PH sound, which is also the P, which is a pay. Sefer, which sounds like cipher, which is also to crypt or decrypt. It's all the same word. It's where we get the word sefer, meaning the scroll, or the word book, to cut hair. It's to give something a shape. So if you take something that's wild and unmanageable and you go, if I trim it here and here, and if you have an empire that wants to establish a frontier, there's all in the Red Dictionary, you put forts here and here and here. Like when Rome was taking over Britain and they established these forts, and finally they just put the Hadrian Wall right across and say, you Scots, you just stay up there, we're not going to mess with you anymore. So that between forts along the way, or even a fort. If a fort has this wall, and they have guard towers, or even a jail with guard towers connecting, that's suffering. Connecting the dots is suffering, establishing a frontier. And it's also telling a story, putting chapters in a book. This is all sefer. So this, Genesis 15, verses 5 and 6, is Yahweh telling Abraham to go outside and sefer the stars. That's this verse. He was told to do this to the stars. This is the word kokav. That's the word star. Im is plural, he is the word the, so the stars. Interesting, if you look up in the dictionary, what is kokavim? Well, it'll just say stars, but you know, the yods and vavs are like wild cards. And if you look at the word kaf, kav, bet, kakav, it's a word for fire extinguisher. What might you do? Why do you think the word star, the root of it is a fire extinguisher? Where might you go with that? Anybody else? Huh? What?
Killing the stars, putting the starlight out.
Where do you ever hear of a story of somebody killing the stars or putting starlight out?
Darknesses.
The darknesses?
The dragon sweeps
A third.
the stars.
Okay, the dragon sweeps the sword of the stars. In the book of Revelation, beginning chapters, Yochanan saw this vision, and there's Yeshua, eyes of fire, walking amongst the candlestick.
Revelation what?
I forget which one it is. Maybe somebody could look at it. He has 7 stars in his hand. Remember that? And he said that it's the mystery of the 7 stars. I can't remember the way it's phrased. Somebody could.
I
Huh?
think that's in Revelation, the first 3 chapters of Revelation.
It's somewhere in the first 3 chapters. But I'm saying it says something about the mystery of the 7 stars, and I can't remember exactly how it's phrased. But a mystery is a secret that has to be deciphered, decrypted. 7 is the word for Shavah, which is the vow, and stars are kokavim, but the word kokavim means they can be extinguished. So he's holding a constellation of 7 stars in his hand that would be reflected in his eyes. If you're looking at Yeshua and he's holding stars in his hand, you'd look into his, of course his eyes are eyes of flame, but the word star means fire extinguisher. Does that have something to do with, he goes on to say, he's standing amongst the candlesticks, or the menorah, representing the 7 assemblies, translated churches, and he keeps saying, if you guys don't do what I said, I'll break off the branch and throw it in the fire. But he said, my Father's the husbandman. So he's the vine, we're the branches. And you could say, well, you look at a menorah shape, the vine is kind of like the center of the stalk, and we're the branches, we're supposed to be bearing fruit, lit. And if we're not bearing fruit, he'll just take the branch off and throw it in the fire. Then he talked about engrafting other wild branches in. So you get a guy like Brad Scott with Wild Branch Ministry, that's where that comes from. But the point is, if we don't bear the right fruit, going back to the letter ayin, because the psalmic is the same as the menorah shape, different graphic motif of orthography, but the noon is the same, even though the psalmic, the graphic engineered design is slightly different between this shape and that shape. It's a statement, it's a picture telling us that if we don't do what he said, which is the way we keep an eye out for our neighbor, love your neighbor as yourself, he's going to break that branch off, the Father will cut it off and throw it in the fire, and your light will be extinguished. That's one way of reading about the 7 stars. Did you find it?
Yeah, it's in 12, Revelation 12.
Revelation 12, oh, okay.
And he's holding the stars, the 7 stars in his right hand, and walks among the 7 golden lampstands in Revelation 2 to the church, the message to the church in Ephesus. So,
Did it say something about the mystery of the 7 stars at one point?
That's Revelation 1:20, the secret of the 7 stars.
The secret of the 7 stars. Now there's a few different words for secret. One of them is the word sod, which is Samik Vav Dalet, S-O-D. Again, read that way. Brad Scott talks about this being family secrets, the sod level. So if it's the sod of the 7 stars, it can only be understood by understanding this. Now, the Jews will say, forget it, we don't have to worry about Yeshua, but we understand the deep level meaning. It's like, if this is the key to the understanding, you may think you understand the Sod level, but unless you understand the Mashiach level, you're not going to really have it. Now, that some people could likely not appreciate me saying that. But the point is, he is the guy that interprets the whole thing. And if you miss him, what do you think you see? The point is, the Sod level is the engineering connected to the Dalet, and if the Dalet is Yeshua saying, I'm the door, then he might be saying by Sod level that you got to understand when he says, I'm the door to the Father, and nobody gets to the Father except through me, you must recognize me. And if we don't, well, just look at the alphabet. He's the guy that's the engineered design of the alphabet is him, which is the door to the Father's house. Again, we can go on and on with that.
So with the light of the stars, we extinguish the darkness, revealing the truth?
With the light of the stars, there's a certain darkness which is extinguished that reveals the truth. You could go there.
Yeah.
Does anybody else see anything else about the Sod level, the Kokavim, in the Shemayim that is possible to separate? Any other thoughts or assimilating?
Well, that hay
Concept.
on the end of Hashemayim means toward the heavens.
Ma
Correct.
is the word actually that spells the word what.
But the hay is the direction toward.
Mem is a place, and Hey is to express or go forward. So you're saying that it's a place that's toward the heavens?
Yeah, look towards the heavens.
Look toward the heavens. The word toward isn't here. Gaze or look at, but what she's saying, I'm just trying to reinterpret for the sake of the camera here, that what this is saying is look in that direction, kind of like looking at the Nun Samik, or the Samik Nun. Anybody else have anything? This is the word tokal. So this is a prefix. Tav, vav, kaf, lamed is the word all. Now, I'm going to look up in the dictionary under tav, vav, kaf, lamed, just to show you what this says, if it indeed is even in here, because sometimes you won't even have a word in here because they just don't give you every possible word starting with a prefix. It would be on page 694. Nope. Tav, vav, kaf, yod, tav is infix, or internal. Tav, vav, kaf, tok. This word tok is internal. As a matter of fact, when we're looking at the verse in Exodus 3 where Moshe had the Malach speaking him from the midst of the fire, it's the same word, tok. However, this is the benefit of the dictionary, tov, vav, kaf, nun, which is to say, take this word and just put a nun suffix. Okay, now the nun as a suffix basically is like one who is engaged in the action of doing, right? You'll find that with other words throughout the dictionary. If there's a nun at the end, somebody is in the act of doing. So we might write ing as an English suffix. And this then becomes the word astronomer. The one who's in the action of separating the heavens by connecting the stars from an internal regard of all what? All the signs, which are the letters. So now he's basically telling us, ponder the letters of the alphabet, hooking them together to make pictures to tell a story about the Aleph Tav as an astronomer. Hey, that sounds like John. That's what he does. Middleman, mediator, arbitrator. That's all Tav, Vav, Kaf, Nun. There is no Tav, Vav, Kaf, Lamed. Doesn't exist. Because it doesn't exist, that means this isn't actually the word, the verb root. So the verb root would be either vav kaf lamed, and there's hardly any words to start with the vav. So that means kaf lamed is the verb root, and tav vav is a prefix. But I just tried to show you something here that I was looking, forget the lamed, that's the word. No Bible translator will do that. What they're going to do is say, this is the word, all. That's not a word because the lamed changes the word. And what I'm saying is that Sepharim, from the Paleo-Hebrew perspective, just play around with it and you'll see some astounding things, such as that.
It means able.
To be able. To be able, you know why they do that? I'll show you why. Is because the word spelled, this yod, see this, the yod, the hand? The word that's spelled yod, kaf, lamed, means to be able, to have the capacity to prevail and contain it all. But there is no yod there. This is a prefix letter. Kaf lamed means all, or complete, or the whole of. H-O-L-E, the whole. Which is kind of like shalom. Whole, complete, kaf lamed. So the translators have dropped the tav vav and stuck on the yod because they know that they're both just prefixes. He will, she will, whatever. But by looking in the dictionary, you see that tav vav kaf means to become an astronomer, but if you change the lamed, but lamed means teach and learn the instructions. So what I'm saying is if I take the aleph tav as a given fixture of this is Yahuwah and his ways, then every other word can be read and deciphered according to the aleph tav without breaking it. So if you know the 22 letters, everything else becomes, what's the word? Not a factor, a factoid. You know, an assembly of the factors. So if you know the 22 letters, you can shuffle them around and mix them up and put them back together, and there they are. For the sake of, or it can mean unto, or it can mean by, or it can mean for. Lamed is a prefix for Sepharim. And then you have aleph tav again, but when you have a tav mem, that means they or them. And says to him, ka. Remember we said yesterday the word kohen, kaf he nun is Cohen, but kaf he means so, thus, yes is actually kaf nun, ken, like Barbie and Ken, that word Ken is the word yes. And just for what it's worth, bar is pure and clean, B means in me or my, so it's my pure and clean is Barbie, and Ken means yes and, you know, truthful and right and honest, so Barbie and Ken is this Hebrew thing. Anyway, Yod He, that's kind of like Yi. This word is found in the second of the Ten Commandments. The first commandment is not a commandment, it's a statement. Anoki Yahuwah Elhek, I am Yahweh your Elohim, taking you out of the house of Egypt, bondage and slavery. And he says, lo, in the Ten Commandments, he says, lo, ye. Do not, what? This is the hand, the first letter that means he will. This is the root verb, which is he yod he, which is similar to yod he vav he. So the he yod he and the he vav he means the verb to exist. So you could say, do not, in the Ten Commandments, do not put your hand to cause the existence of either creating or sustaining, perpetuating, allowing it to be. So here he says, so yes, he will cause to exist, cause to be, because that he will, that's a causative. Thus, put your hand to cause to be. This word Zerash, Kaf at the end means you or your. Does anybody know what Zayin Resh Ayin means?
Seed or descendants?
Seed, offspring,
Children.
children, which is us. Us even now. This is 2000 BC, so we're like 4,000 years later. Put your hand to the suffering of the stars, names and places, as an astronomer pondering, dividing according to the Aleph Tav. When you separate and partition according to the Aleph Tav, if the Aleph Tav is this whole 22, to partition, like putting lanes in a street. I mean, I showed you one road with one line, but look at the LA freeway, you've got 6 lanes. They're all katim, they're separating. So you separate the stars, you separate the pictures of the constellations. And so you will cause, or your hand will be the instrument which tells the narrative story of your offspring. At this point, Genesis 15, Abraham was going, rats, I don't have any offspring. I guess I'll have to give it all to Eliezer, my friend, the guy from Syria. He always says, no, it's not going to work that way. Take a look. Count the stars. Sorry, don't bother, nobody can count them, there's too many. But Abraham believed, and it was counted to him for righteousness. That's the New Testament translation. Abraham is told to do something, which nobody can do. And Abraham said, well, I believe that if he told me I'll have children, I'll have children. But what's that got to do with the stars? Counting. Oh, it's just the number of stars. Okay, a bunch of stars. Okay, I'll believe that I have a bunch of children. Oh, Abraham's a righteous man because he believed that he's going to have a whole bunch of children. There's an element, an aspect, a mote, there's like the dot over the I, not one iota, where the story that I just told you has an iota of truth. If Yahweh says something, even though you see no possible way, so, okay, I believe, and there's a certain spark of life, little flame, like the noon, the consciousness, according to the engineered structure. If Yahweh says, I'm going to engineer this, and you go, okay, I believe, then that belief is where you get the tikva, the hope, which is the, okay, then I'll do what he says, because somehow that'll work out. If I do what he says, there's the zadi, the spark, line upon line, precept upon precept. But is that all Abraham did? And the Amen. With this word letter, this is Yod He Vav He, right? So I write it as YHUH, just to exaggerate the phonetic of the U that people don't like. This letter Bet means in, with, among, on, through, or also against. Why is it all those things if it's a body, if it's a house? The point is, the Bet in correlation to the Aleph is the plan, the silent letter, the unseen, the objective that Yahweh has in his heart to be our Elohim and we his people, and the Bet is the manifestation of that. The universe manufactured, put in cosmos, matter, is the reality. What we would call the reality in 3 space dimensions and 1 of time, and then you've got the life working within the life in the house is the Bet Noon, and all that's the Bet. What is the Amen? Well, if you look at the word Aleph Mem Noon, Amen, it's not only translated, so be it, but it also means artist, artisan, and craftsman. It means skilled, trained specialist. It's someone who studies, works, practices, really thinks about it, and concentrates on working with their hands. That's an Aleph Mem Nun. But this has the Hey prefix, so if we look at Hey Aleph Mem Nun, just to see what happens to be here, this would be on page 130. 5, 134. No, 135. It means estimation, appraisal, or assessment. No, excuse me, that's Aleph Mem Dalet. My eyes are blurry here. Confirmation or accreditation, believed or trusted. Hey Aleph Mem Nun Vav Tav, different suffix, means verification, and then it says it's the verbal noun of Nun Aleph Mem. Well, this is Hey Aleph Mem, but now he's telling me in the dictionary, Hey Aleph Mem Nun is simply a variation of the word Nun Aleph Mem. So what we're going to do is look up Nun Aleph Mem. Found trustworthy, found true. So I'll look up Nun Aleph Mem. Gosh, he keeps trying to push me around.
Into the
How do you
picture.
get that part up there?
Okay, Nun Aleph Mem means make a speech, to utter or speak. So quite often you'll see in the text, in the scripture, it says Nun Aleph Mem Yod He Vav He. And it's translated the word of the Lord, or thus saith the Lord. To pronounce it, it's N-A-M, Nam Yahweh. Nam Yahweh. But Nun Aleph Mem, so in which case the Nun is a suffix, so Hey Aleph Mem, and the word Aleph Mem, if you look it up in the dictionary, means if or on condition of. If or on, it means it could go otherwise. If or on the condition of. So Aleph Mem, or Nun Aleph Mem, is to make a speech, to utter, speak, to give an address, utter a prophecy. Steadfast, this Nun Aleph Mem Nun, steadfast, firm, sure, faithful, trustworthy, reliable, found trustworthy. Okay, so the point is, Abraham was found trustworthy because he went and did it. So the interpretation of the New Testament that Abraham was told to do something that nobody can do, if you're able, well, nobody's able, so he didn't do anything but believe, just isn't so. Abraham went out and deciphered the stars, putting them into pictures, knowing that whatever the pictures were, he was going to cause to be as a true, absolute, trustworthy, firm prophecy of his own offspring, even reaching down to us today, and including Mashiach. Because that's one of his offspring. So in the constellations, Abraham wrote, described, now, and he will Het Shin Bet. So if we look at Het Shin Bet, this is, Lamed means unto him, or according to, or by. This is the word, as I said up here, righteous, and this is righteousness. So if that's righteous, and this is the righteousness, which is the suffix ending. But if you look in the dictionary, you'll see that this word here, Zadik, also means victory. It's also deliverance and salvation. So there's something in the stars, if we just look at the other meanings, that is the game plan, the strategy, the map, the treasure map of our victory, our deliverance, our salvation, of how we dig out or sprout out, sprouting up out of being buried alive by our enemies while they party on top, drinking the wine from our vineyard and eating the bread off of our table, which Yahweh had originally given to our forefathers, which they scorned, thinking it was disgusting slop fit for the pigs. To pull all these stories back together. Het Shin Bet. What is that? Does anybody want to take a guess? Sally?
Set apart, perfect, close, set, Shin Bet.
think about how you, she's mulling. Think about how you would read these words, het shin bet. The yod prefix means he will. This is the word that vav means and, but it can also mean but or however. But this is the connector. This is the nail. This is what nails it right here. Somehow this word is going to nail that according to what he just designed is where we can read the story of our victory. Salvation, deliverance. It's the word Yeshua. Yeah. So for me to say that Yeshua is Yahweh's pleasure, the word Shah is to delight, Shin Ayin. Shasha is delight. There's some girl's name, Shasha. Yahweh's delight is going to be to take what Abraham designed and be the map of our salvation. Yeshua, Yahusha is in these pictures, and if we know how to read them, then we have in front of us an absolutely certain, amen, step by step, that if we keep these steps, we know we have the victory. No question. You see 185,000 Syrians, wake up dead in the morning. You see a whole entire army, 60,000 or maybe 600,000. Saul and Jonathan, they had a sword, 2 swords between them. That's it. They had 600 guys, no weapons. They had 2 swords, 600,000 people filling the entire valley, and they won. And then when the enemy ran, they picked up all the swords, and now they have a fully equipped army. Yahweh can do astounding things if we have that hope set before us and do what he said, Zadivav. So what's this word? What do you got?
So the set apart, perfect, pristine family, house.
She's saying that the het, which is a fence, which is like Yahweh's kingdom, like the Mishkan fence, that not everybody can enter. So it's a picture of Passover, Pesach, which says you have to be circumcised, you have to be of Israel. You can come into this house and regard the fact that he is our Elohim, we're his people, blood on the doorpost, anticipating his deliverance. That's the mind of the Kadosh Am, the Kadosh people who are in this het. That's the set apart. She's looking at Shin as the pure and clean, the refined, but it's Yahweh's, it's El Shaddai's perspective. He's the Almighty, the omnipotent, overwhelming force, and the provider of all benefits. Both those of you will find a Shaddai in the dictionary. It's that perspective of him giving provision to those in his het, in his camp. And that's where we get the word hen, which is simply translated grace, but het nun is in the camp, nun, the provisions and allowances, the party. It's where we get the word Khan, as in Genghis Khan, K-H-A-N. Khan is pronounced Chen. I would write it C-X-N, Chen. The Chen is what's in here that is El Shaddai's heart to bestow to his bet, his house. How did you describe
Family or...
Family, those who are taught and trained to be of him. And another way to look this is that, well, if he's the Aleph, his bride is the bet. If he's the Resh man, that's like standing up with great dignity, and the bride is the one sitting next to him. You know, it's kind of a picture of sitting down under his shadow, under his sheltering. Another way to read the word bet, and this is expressed or manifest. So Abraham's going to put together this story according to this, which is the map by which we can find our victory. Now I'll tell you what the dictionary says. Oh, does anybody else have a rendering of this real quick, a sephering?
A house, contained, the knowledge contained.
The knowledge contained. Where do you get the, where's the knowledge contained?
Okay, the
Squiggly one. The squiggly one.
Yeah, the squiggly one.
They're all squiggly. Which one are you referring to?
The bet. The bet.
Oh, thank you. The bet is the knowledge. and the house is the ket. Okay, the knowledge contained. The very last one. The. Let's see. Hold on. The hay at the end. What you just said a while ago sparked my idea. I can't remember what you said.
How would you say it? Forget what I said. What do you see?
No, that very word. I was adding to what that last word you were saying. But the knowledge contained is like a refinement.
The knowledge contained in his encampment is refining. See, Bet Hay is translated in her. In her.
Okay.
The bride, as it were.
Uh-huh.
In her. That's Bet Hay. One other thing, this letter Shin Bet is Shuv, which is the same letters here, Shuv, which is the Teshuvah, which is the ones who return to his encampment. Okay, now I'll read you. Anybody else? Okay, I'll read what the dictionary says. It's on page 235. To think, to account, reckoned, calculated, devised, planned, regarded, considered, counted, reckoned, calculated, devised, planned, was about to do something, was on the verge of doing something. Just simply to think or to take something into account. It means to imagine. Imagine. That's what this word is. And to think. And to regard. And to calculate. It's the word for arithmetic. Attached importance to. Just to consider this important. Esteemed, valued. Well, the word for attach importance, esteem, value, and put it in order is the word literally spelled ayin resh kaf, which is the word charek, which is the erectology. That's why the word is erectology, doing this stuff. So Abraham was told to conduct an erectology sephering of the constellations. Just happens to be my name's pronounced Eric, but it's simply coincidental. That's literally what the word means. Device or invention. He was told to invent something. It's also this word for abacus, which is the Chinese wires and beads by which you can count and do extreme calculations. So even the word calculus that Isaac Newton developed, doing the calculus is figuring out how the entire universe is put together. It's to give a bill or an invoice to somebody, a receipt for payment, to figure out and sum up. Het, Shin, Kaf, Nun. Okay, so the whole idea here, to sum it up and to bring it all together, John, what do you see here?
Well, I describe it, think of it as the Creator, who when he created the stars, he named the stars. And the names have meaning. And there's a tradition that if you look at constellations, and you follow the brightest stars to the dimmest ones, with their names, they tell a story about each constellation. And so here I see in Scripture that it's not Greek mythology.
It's not about Hercules and Orion and Sagittarius.
Those seem to be substitutions, but Abraham was told, here's what I've created. Here's what's coming. Here's what is and what's coming. And you're to relate this to your children for our righteousness.
For our victory.
Our victory, right? And that's just a quick summary. There's a lot more to the stars than Greek mythology.
or even astrology, which is figuring that they have a certain power to influence and do some kind of sorcery, wizardry with them.
Right.
So, Yahweh warns us back in the, probably Leviticus, I'm guessing, or Deuteronomy, don't look to the stars as controlling powerful agents over you. But here, it looks like Abraham was told to design the constellations as a roadmap of Yeshua, Yahweh's salvation given to his family as a step-by-step connecting the dots, as a fort, as the encampment, which is a brilliant imaginary arithmetic calculation. And even though it's just a fantasy story, Yahuwah says, I'm going to turn it into the real thing. Because he said, according to the condition, if on the condition, Yahweh will cause to exist, this word can be read as of Yahweh, right? Bet Yod He Vav He. But He Vav He is simply a verb to exist. And this Bet Yod could be read as, just like Bet He means in her, this could be read as in me. In me who? In Yahweh? This doesn't have to even be read as Yahweh. This is the verb to exist. In me can be this thing that he designed. It all depends on where you put the verb and where you put the noun. So there's two different ways to read this, which is why if you find Yod He Vav He, is that always the name of the Almighty? Not necessarily. So if somebody has different vowel points, and they say, oh, we just found the one place hidden that some scribe forgot to erase the vowel points, and that must be the way you pronounce his name. Because there's one place in the entire scroll that was dragged in from Russia somewhere, and a scribe, ha ha ha, now we know how to pronounce the sacred name. Maybe, but maybe it just means he will cause it to exist. Maybe that wasn't his sacred name after all, the way you supposedly pronounce it. Sorry, Nehemiah. Just a thought. Anyway, so the concept is, if we go back and look at the stars, not for the astrological power ruling us, Yahweh rules us. He's our Elohim. And not because there's some Greek deities, or even nowadays they come up with other pictures because we can. So modern day astronomers, they have competitions. Hey, can you redesign the stars and make it so?
Well, the International Astronomical Union added 40 constellations in the 1930s.
40 constellations added in the 1930s.
They took some and broke them up and renamed them, and now we have
so
a constellation that's a microscope.
So if you look at star maps right now, you can't trust the star maps.
Well, they're certainly going to have different constellations from what they were prior to that.
That Abraham would have come up with. But see, I've never heard people say, lately we have, because we've been talking about it for a few years, but previously I'd never heard anybody say that Abraham designed the constellations. But this seems to say that. I've just heard that Abraham was told to count the stars and he can't, so it was credited to him for righteousness.
Well, and where you and I differ, I still think that Yah designed the constellations.
Oh, I'm not saying he
And
didn't,
named
because his
the
Ruach
stars.
had caused Abraham to see,
But he gave Abram a responsibility
to make them
And-
manifest.
in relating, in preaching the stories.
So that means, how many
Such
sleepless
is
nights
different.
did Abraham have laying out there and staring at the stars and noticing that they changed throughout the year, and then keeping a tally and a record? Sometimes it was overcast, and gosh, how long would it take for Abraham to figure this stuff out? Anyway, so me and John for a couple of years have been looking at the star names, putting them into Hebrew phonetics, and trying to figure out if there's a different way to read what the constellations say by looking at the Hebrew words, according to the alphabet letters, with regard to Yeshua. Because any Greek star maps or any modern star maps certainly don't. And any witchcraft, sorcery, astrological star maps, New Age, whatever, certainly don't. You've got to have an Ayin Dalet, Ayin Tav, and Aleph Tav. Then read the stars. So, if we can finally find some time this year, that's what we'll do, and we're out of time. So long.
Hello!